Hi, everyone. This is Krista Moore with The Krista Moore Show, and I'm excited that you're joining us today. We have a fabulous guest, and I know that I say that, quite often because I think we do have fabulous guests, but this particular one only needs introduced by his first name, and it's Mario. Mario, are you out there? And it's kind of like that Madonna thing, Mario. You've got that first name thing going. So I think that's pretty cool.
I love it. I'm here, Krista, and I have not been referred to as the sole single name ever before of Mario,
Oh,
but I will
really?
take it. I will take it just like Madonna.
Exactly. I think you should. Well, one thing that I wanted to say before we really even get into diving into this product is I know you, and I've followed you socially, and I've learned a lot of things from you, and that's why I wanted to bring you into my community. But take a moment, please, and introduce yourself. Give us a little bit of background. What's Mario all about?
Well, thank you so much for having me. Excited to be here with you and all of your guests. So Mario, what am I all about? Geez, I have been in sales for 21 years. That's what I'm in my 22nd year of selling. And I was born and raised in sales, everything from small business to public sector to federal to national and global accounts, and mid-market technology sales to professional services, infrastructure as a service, even retail, Krista, even retail, as my early on in my career. And now I get the privilege of being able to lead Vengresso, which is a digital sales transformation service and training company. And we focus on just one thing and one thing only, and that is people who are responsible for revenue. So that includes any of you out there that are trying to grow revenue. And
Yep.
that's who we are.
And that's our audience, so that's perfect. One thing that I have to also mention here is, my life I've dedicated to learning and development around sales and sales leadership. We've developed a ton of sales training over the years, but it's been traditional B2B sales learning, sales training, person to person, and also maybe a little bit on inside sales, but this whole concept of digital sales. I'd like you to explain that term for our group so that they are more clear on what exactly that means.
So digital sales or digital selling is, if you look at the world of sales training, you've got everything from prospecting to the close. So that includes, relationship building, contract negotiations, phone voice, all those types of things. Digital selling is on the prospecting side, generally speaking, and it's one particular sliver, and that is leveraging digital mediums to be able to engage with today's modern buyer. That includes things like social media, video as an example, even texting. And so if you look at the whole entire prospecting channel, you have many different mediums, three that I just mentioned, plus you've got the phone, plus you've got email, direct mail, those types of things. So if you put that all together, that's what we call the omni-channel. And we focus squarely on just the digital side of things, meaning teaching sellers how to leverage digital, in this case, social and video, to be able to engage with their buyers with the right type of messaging and the technique.
Yeah, and there's probably some folks on the line, some skeptics that say, well, I am doing digital. I have a LinkedIn profile and I send out emails and sometimes I text my customers. And one thing that I heard you say is how to leverage this in your conversations and how to kind of capitalize on this digital platform in order to get more business, retain your customers. And I want our audience to leave today with some techniques or some refreshed ideas on what they can do.
Sure. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
So your company is Vengresso, and you've kind of taken this whole digital training area by storm. Why don't you give us a little bit of backdrop on that?
Well, we actually formed a little over 2 years ago, and we brought together 4 different companies underneath one umbrella to form the largest digital sales training company globally. And we deliver all of our training through primarily VILT, virtual instructor-led training. We also have all for our small business practice. We have our on-demand sales training. And then also we really bring together the worlds of sales and marketing together with helping marketing figure out, what do you need to talk about? What do you need to write about in order for salespeople to actually bring value to their clients when they're engaging through a digital medium? So that's really that content and the marketing coming together with the sales team to form a collective strategy on a go-to-market digital sales strategy. So this is very different than social media. It's very different than social media marketing. We're not talking about the marketing side of the house. We're talking about how sellers or people responsible for revenue leverage these channels to engage with their buyers.
Yeah, and I think that's probably something that needs to be mentioned. You mentioned marketing and sales. Who owns this within a corporation or a company in terms of creating the digital sales process?
Yeah, so that's a really great question. And 50% of our buyers start with marketing. The other 50% start with sales leaders. So take your choice. The reality is that you can't do digital selling without the other team. So if you are a sales leader and you want to increase the number of sales conversations that your sellers are having, and you're tired of only getting 3 to 10 phone conversations out of 100 that you might make, well, you got to think of the strategy for the other 90% of buyers that you're not reaching. And
yeah, there's a term that we have written about and I speak about frequently, which is, and I'm sure you've heard this term before, which is smarketing, right? Which is sales
absolutely.
and marketing combined. It's kind of like you have the Reese's peanut butter cup. You know, remember the old days, and you might be too young for this, but it was a commercial where someone's walking down the street with a chocolate bar and someone else, you know, with a jar of peanut butter. Who does that? But it was in this commercial, and then they merge. So I guess the metaphor there is they're both great in their own right, but combine them, bring them together to work together, you can make something even, you know, even better, right?
Well, I would argue that today's salesperson is a smarketer, right? You must be a smarketer in order for you to be successful.
But I would also say, I don't think that they realize that's their role. But what a great opportunity to wrap all of that digital stuff around yourself as a salesperson to be more marketing, you know, be more smarketing. And what advice would you give companies when it comes to starting to think this way, or kind of getting out from under the old school approach or traditional methods?
Well, the first piece of advice that I would give is, number one, take a look at the number of conversations that you're having with the outreach methodologies that you're using. That's the first thing. If in fact you're finding that you are having anywhere 10 or fewer call discussions out of 100 in terms of a phone call or emails that you're sending, well, then you as a sales leader, or even in some cases on marketing, need to think about, shoot, what's my strategy to reach the other 90%? And in most cases, when we speak to sales leaders, most sales leaders don't have a strategy to reach that other 90%, and they think it's marketing's job to go and reach that other 90%. That's not the case. If your CEO found out that you did not have a targeted strategy to reach the other 90%, and that you're measuring and the metrics and KPIs to measure yourself by that, you'd be fired. So you got to think about what's working today. And if you do not need more conversations, well, then you probably don't need to leverage the digital channel, because whatever you're doing is working. But I would probably say that's very short-sighted. So that's the first thing you need to be thinking about. The second thing you need to be thinking about is it's not okay for our sellers just to have tools and technology and not receive the skill set training development to learn how to do it right. Let me give you an example, Krista. Would we ever bring on a new salesperson to our sales organization, hand them a phone and say, go now and make quota and be successful? Would we ever do that?
No.
We give
But
them,
we do.
We both. Sometimes we do, but we know that we have to give them the right type of training to be able to be educated on overcoming objections, the 30-second elevator pitch, how to capture that person's attention right on the phone call right from the beginning, right? So we do all this skill set training and development. Yet when we think about using tools like video or even LinkedIn, we have not thought about, well, how do I train my people how not to spray and pray that they're going to get results, and the right way to go about leveraging these channels. So part of it is, do you have a strategy and a plan? If not, you need to develop one. And the other part is recognize, shoot, we should not give these tools and technologies to our sellers without giving them the right skill set, training, development. Because here's my saying, a fool with a tool is still a fool.
I'll remember that. And actually, I'm going to use that. I'll quote you on that.
Go ahead. A fool with a
Now,
tool is still a fool.
there's a word that you used a few times as you were describing what you were describing those 2 points. And one is, it's really conversations. We're not really talking at this stage in the sales process, perhaps selling. It's getting the attention of the modern buyer and starting a conversation.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
let's talk about LinkedIn. And
Okay.
when it comes to starting, so let's say we have someone that's saying, gee, yeah, I'm one of the 645 million people on LinkedIn. And I go in there and I don't do anything. Like, I'll check it and I'll see what's going on, but I'm not engaging in any kind of conversations, and I don't really use the tool. So what would you advise a seller?
Best piece of advice. Here we go. You ready?
Yes.
Krista, when you walk into a live networking meeting, meaning face to face, you and I are bodies in a room, right? With a bunch of other people. Do we go inside there and walk up to somebody and say, hi, I'm Mario Martina. Mario Martina. What am I saying? Mario Martina. Mario Martinez. I have identity
something you
crisis.
need to tell us, Mario?
No, I apparently have an identity crisis right now.
Is this a reveal party?
This is not the coming out party right here for me. No.
I'm just teasing you. Sorry, I had to say that.
I'm going to move on off that topic. I am not Mario Martina. I am Mario Martinez. But that I wouldn't walk up to you and say, Krista, Mario Martinez, CEO of Ingresso. I've been wanting to get in touch with you. Here's what I'd like to do. I'd like to schedule an appointment to spend 15 minutes of your time to talk about what we can do to help your business grow. That would be so awkward. Like, you would look at me and say, okay, who are you? Like, why are you
stalking me?
Exactly. Why are you coming up to me? And this is what sellers are doing, right? We're cold calling. All we've done, most of our sellers have moved cold calling from a phone to LinkedIn.
Exactly.
Right? Or they're moving cold call from the phone to email, right? And they're just spraying and praying, and they're hoping that something sticks. And here's what I would say is in terms of the right way to use a tool like LinkedIn, you've got to remember that LinkedIn is the live networking room that you're walking into. Instead of there being 100 people, there's 640 million people. That is your ocean. So whatever you would do in person, you would also want to do online. And that's very important for people to understand. And I was just with one of our newest customers yesterday, as a matter of fact, out in Tennessee. And the sales reps were talking about they haven't had much success on leveraging LinkedIn. We get into our first training program with them, and they have this revelation like, oh my God, I should stop doing what I've been doing. And what I've been doing is I'm reaching out to connecting, asking for a meeting. Yes, stop doing that. Well, geez, that means it's going to take a little bit extra time.
And then and then my next thought as a seller is, well, how do I get the content, to have a conversation that isn't that approach?
Well, that's exactly right.
That's not my job.
Yeah, and that's where we talk about, we call our for Ingresso, we have what's called the PVC sales method, right? So PVC, Paul, Victor, Charlie, PVC, right? Just like the pipe. But the PVC sales method is really all about personalizing your messaging. That's the P. The V is the bring value or give value, right? So you got
Yes.
to give value to your buyer. And we oftentimes talk about, we salespeople hear this term, give value, give value, give value. What the heck does that mean? That's so cliche, give value. How do you give value? Well, here's where you, if you're a sales leader and you're listening in, you're going to go march over to your CMO's office and you're going to say, Mr. or Mrs. CMO, where is the valuable content that you're going to give my sellers so that when I reach out to CX, whatever it might be, or VP of whatever it might be, that I can bring them content that answers the business problems that we solve, right? And helps them understand who you help, how you help, and the business problem. And so that's that valuable content. And sellers need to start, that's that whole marketing thing. And by
Yes.
the way, we've always done this before. Nothing's different. Marketing markets one to many.
Mm-hmm.
Salespeople market one to one. So guess what? We've always been marketers. This isn't
That's
new.
right. That's right.
So that's
And
that P and the V, and then the C is learning how to leverage a call to action. Most sales reps, when they engage on LinkedIn, they're immediately asking for a date. I want a meeting. I want a meeting. I'd love to have 15 minutes of your time. I'd love to be able to spend 15 minutes, 15 minutes, 15 minutes, 15 minutes. Oh my God, I hate the 15-minute meeting request. It's so stupid. That's my personal philosophy. First of all, it takes me 7 minutes just to build a rapport with you, right? 7 minutes to understand who you are, your likes, just those types of things. I need to build, and then I have 7 minutes to be able to assess whether or not you're a live prospect. Like, no, that doesn't make sense. So the point is a CTA on LinkedIn is not always getting a meeting. A CTA, a call to action, by the way, a CTA,
yes.
might be that I might ask you, Krista, here are 2 common problems that most sales leaders are dealing with. 1, learning how to create more sales conversations that's going to grow the sales pipeline. And number 2, increase their sales win ratio. Are you having those 2 problems? Because if so, I have this great article that discusses how you as a sales leader can go about increasing the number of sales conversations to drive more pipeline. Boom, you attach the article. Let me ask you this question. I'm sorry. 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 I'm asking you now. Coming out of character, I'm asking you now. How did I personalize this? Well, I first personalized this through something personal about you. But if I don't have anything, I'm going to personalize to the buyer. And how did I do that in that script that I just gave you? I said, here are 2 common problems that people have. So that's personalizing to the buyer,
Well,
persona.
and it's establishing you as an expert in whatever that is, and that you are aware of a problem that you're solving, and it builds some credibility to that.
Well, and I myopically focus on the business problem that I can solve. If you say to me as a buyer, as a potential buyer, no, we don't have a problem with sales conversations and our win rates are through the roof. You're not a prospect for me and I don't want to talk to you, at least not at this time.
Okay, then I have a question for you, because I don't know if this is just something that's happening on LinkedIn, and I think we've all received those in messages from people that are trying to act like they know what our problem is, and they're using, something to do with getting new business or money. I mean, they've got these common problems that everybody would have, and they're making it very generic. It almost is feeling like they're inhuman or it's a robot, and it's so annoying.
Yeah.
I don't want our guests to think, I don't want to be that guy. I don't want to be that social seller that's sending messages that is so annoying like the ones I'm getting. What do you say to that?
So on personalization for the PVC sales method, there's 2 ways to personalize. Number 1, you're personalizing to the individual. That is always the best default, meaning I saw you, Krista, publish something on a particular article, or someone may be selling to me. And if they were smart, they see that I just joined the National Association of Women Sales Professionals on their advisory board. So they might reach out and say, Mario, congratulations. I saw the recent announcement about you being joined to NAWSP. Right?
Bingo. I want to make sure that everybody heard what you just said. And I remember, and I'll be a good testament to this. I remember someone sending me a message that was complimenting an article that I wrote, pulled out a line in the article that really resonated with them. And I was just, I'm maybe a little flattered. Someone actually is reading my stuff, but whatever they did, their approach connected with me, and it started a conversation. And that
Exactly.
was different than the run-of-the-mill, I just need 15 minutes of your time.
That's exactly right. Now, the second portion of personalization is, let's pretend, Krista, you have nothing at all on social, right? That I can't figure out anything that would help me personalize this on your profile. I don't see that you speak another language. We didn't go to the same school. We have no mutual connections. I have nothing, right? Pretend you have nothing. Then at the base minimum, personalization means that you're personalizing to the buyer persona, meaning you're going to speak to the business problems that your buyer persona has that your company solves. And that's
Well,
right.
that makes me think even more so how important it is to have some of that niche um, sales and marketing kind of messaging
Aligned.
aligned. Yes.
Exactly. Well, that's why I was giving my example earlier when I said for Ingresso, when I'm talking to sales leaders and they say, well, what do you do? Well, we help sales teams create more sales conversations and increase win rates. Do you have that problem? That's it. Like,
Yeah.
that's all. If you say, no, I am perfect, then you're not a prospect and I'm not going to sell you anything. No matter what I say to you about how badly you are performing on LinkedIn or through video, you think you're great and you don't have a business pain. And so therefore, we as sellers, when we think about the buyer persona, we need to turn back to marketing and say, marketing, what is the 1, 2, or 3 business problems that we solve? And maybe it's by product line, right? Maybe it's by product line. Think about what those business problems are, because if you can't personalize to the individual, you personalize at the base minimum to the buyer persona. And that's the difference when people are sending out messages on those generic ones that you're talking about. I get them all the time, every day. We help companies be able to increase their reach by 5 million%, and I'd love to be able to spend 15 minutes with you. Well,
What about
everybody, of course, has that problem. Give me something
exactly?
more specific to the individual problem that you solve.
So a couple of things come to mind. The I can save you time and money thing, which
Yeah.
is like my crazy, makes me my head.
Bananas.
Yeah.
Everybody tells me you can save me time and money.
Like, what does that mean? But my thought there is there's probably people on the line that are chuckling and they're saying, CMO, like, I don't even have a marketing person, or that's me and I don't know how to do this.
What do I say to them?
What do you say? What
Fantastic.
do you
Guess
say?
what? I was also there in your position as a one-man company 3.5 years ago.
Yes.
And the CMO was me, myself, and I. The sales leader was me, myself, and I. And the delivery person was me, myself, and I. And the legal person was me, myself, and I. Right? So
Right.
here's how we have to think through that. If you are a soloist, no problem. You still solve. You offer up a service or a product. You still solve a business problem. Take 10 minutes. 10 minutes. That's all you need. And write down 2 things that you commonly hear from your buyers as the element that makes your ears go, oh, wait, what did you just say? Because when you hear that oh, what did you just say? That's
Mhm.
your cue to say, I think I've got a live one. So
Yeah,
whatever it is that you listen for, that you're hearing, write that down. That's the business problem
that's
you
the
solve.
problem.
And now what you do is, as a soloist, you say, I don't have content. I don't have a blog. I don't have all these videos. No problem. All you have to do is make a short 2-minute video and answer the questions that you just wrote down that you hear from customers. That you've got 2 pieces of content now. Answer
Mhm.
the question that you hear. Most customers tell me that they have a problem being able to create more sales conversations with their teams. Okay, boom. Now I'm going to create a video. Recently, I heard from a customer, I'm in character now in the video. Recently, I heard from a customer that they have a problem creating more sales conversations. What should you do about it? There are 3 things that you should do about this. 1, 2, and 3. Boom. Now you've just created your own piece of content, right? The other thing too is you could also do searches on content. There's
Content sharing, and that's going to, I mean, there could be a whole strategy behind that, especially if you're looking for partners or you're looking to expand your database.
yeah. There's a great tool called Feedly, Feedly. .com. It's free. You can pay for the premium service, but the free one works pretty darn well. And Feedly actually helps you to curate content and do source content pool. So you can pull it from Forbes, Inc., and all kinds of every other website in the world by just putting in your topic, and
Yeah.
then you can pull that content
Yeah, we need to write that down as well
in.
because
Feedly.
One thing that I had read just recently is that LinkedIn produces, or people on LinkedIn are producing over 100,000 articles a week, which I thought was a big number. And I'm thinking things get lost, in the
Yeah.
shuffle of all of that.
Yeah, I mean, there's one thing, there's content distribution, which is pushing it out to your network and having people look at their newsfeed and seeing an article. At that point, you're playing the game of who has the bigger audience, who has the bigger voice, and who can have the most catchiest thumbnail, the artwork and those types of
Sure.
things. Which we play that game, right? And by the way, Krista, I was a soloist for 9 months and I became a sales influencer within that first year in my business. So can it be done? Yes. And I did zero advertising. I used social media. So can it be done? 100%. But
When you gave the example of video, I think it's important for us to talk about video for a moment. You and I, look at us. We're comfortable on the camera. I have my own show where I could be in front of the camera. And, you're doing a lot of podcasts and you're doing a lot of video for marketing for your business. Plenty of people do not want to put their face in front of a camera. And there's that fear. And I'm wondering what you have to say to them.
So there's two things. We have a selling with video sales training program, right?
Okay, great.
And so one of the common objections we get, and I'm just going to keep it very real for your audience. One of the common objections we get is, I don't want to be on camera. I'm too fat. I'm too ugly. I have loss of hair. And we have all these things. And so then I asked the seller, I said, okay, I understand. We're in now our psychiatry session, and I'm getting everything going out from them, all the challenges and issues. No worries, no worries.
What will people think?
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And this stemmed back from my childhood when I was 4 years old. My dad put me on camera and made me, okay, got it. So let me ask you this question, just one question. Do you do face-to-face meetings with your prospects? And well, yeah, of course. Yeah, of course I do. Great. So when you go into the meeting with your prospects, since you think you're fat, or you think you're losing your hair, or you think you're ugly, let me just, you wear a bag on your head. Is that right? You go in and wear a bag on your head? Well, of course not. Okay. So all you have to do is this little lens right here on the back of the phone right there, that little lens. This is now John. Put it in front of you and pretend it's John or Mary or Susie or Billy, whoever it is that you normally meet with, and talk to them. That's it. That's all you have to do. Now,
and this is great advice. And it takes practice, perhaps, if you're not totally comfortable. But as we were saying before, that one-to-one and one-to-many is the shift. And if you're not playing in that space, you're missing 90% of your potential prospects.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, some people truly do have a fear, and we've ran into salespeople who truly have a fear. And let's pretend that video is not for you. You know the exercise that I told you to do to be able to create that video content, right? Right. Listen. What are the two questions or two statements you're listening for in the sales meeting that says, oh, I got an opportunity. Write those things down. Now what you do is you write those two things down, you create a mini little outline of the 5 things that solve that particular problem and some of the proof points. Then you go to, if you're a soloist, you go to a tool like writersaccess.com or blogmuts.com, and you pay $1.99 and have someone write the article for you. And guess what? For 199 bucks, you have content. Yeah.
And you have 5 things that you now can break down into 5 different posts.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And then repurpose all of that.
Absolutely. And if you have a marketing team, then you as a seller, if you're saying my marketing team's content sucks, okay, maybe it does. Write down the questions that you listen for that make you go, like in the sales meeting, oh, I got a live one here. And write down those questions, hand them off to your marketing content person and say, here is what people are asking me in the field. I need a piece of content for this.
Yeah, this is some great stuff. Thanks for sharing. I really, really, really love it. And if anything, we're not expecting people to leave this call today, feeling confident to get on video or start writing, as much as realizing that whole concept of the death of the salesman, with the onset of social and digital is real. Yeah. And I know it gets frustrating for you, I would imagine, as an owner of a digital sales training company. Yeah. You probably hear all the excuses.
Sometimes I'm like, banging my head because literally last year I did 202 executive level meetings, and 70% of them were convincing sales leaders that this thing called the internet actually exists. Right? And so we have to move past that. The internet is real. We have to move past that. And we cannot put these blinders on and say, oh, I'm going to continue my cold calling and email blasting. I'm going to continue doing that because it's worked for 25 years. Guess what? That's what Sears thought. That's what Toys R Us thought.
Yeah.
That's what Blockbuster thought. And guess what? Something changed. Buyers made the market change, and up and came things like Amazon, right?
Yeah.
So we have to adjust to the market conditions and the way the
Yeah.
buyer wants to engage.
Tell me a little bit about the modern buyer. That is a term that I know that you use frequently, and I know you're rebranding your podcast to to kind of resonate with the modern buyer. Tell me more about that.
Yeah, well, Selling with Social is the podcast today, and I haven't announced yet to the world what it's going to be, but it will be coming up in the coming weeks. So
You're
it's
not going
coming.
to announce it on our show?
I cannot announce it yet. But I will say, if you're looking for another podcast, it's Selling with Social, is a sales podcast. And today's modern buyer really has as you put, has kind of changed the game on us in terms of salespeople. Think about the way we buy things today. We buy like a consumer. How does it make me feel? Can I use this product? What do the reviews say about it? What do other people say about it? Who's referring people to that? So all the things that we do in our consumer life, guess what? Our buyers are doing that, and they're doing that research online for B2B business products, right? And so I like to call that as a term called prosumer. It's a professional consumer, a professional buying B2B services as a consumer mindset. That's the prosumer. And so what has that created? Well, that's created a lot more information that's available online. So your buyers are out there looking for and getting information online and through their network, through referrals.
And that would be the things that maybe traditionally they would use their salesperson for.
Exactly correct. They would call up the salesperson and try to get that information. The power of information is no longer in our hands. It's not. And so we have to recognize that. So I would rather serve up great content to my buyers and have them learn from the content that I'm sharing, as opposed to all of my competitors that are sharing, right? Or those people that are not sharing anything. So the modern buyer basically has changed the game in this way. One, the way in which they buy, number one. And number two, how they want to engage. And that has made our job as sellers much more complicated, because I have to think, Krista, if you're my buyer, do you want to talk on the phone, text, email, use social? Will you accept video? Do you like direct mail? The list goes on. And I have to adjust to that. And a great example is I am in a buying position right now for Vingresso, and I am looking for file sharing services. And the salesperson for the last 45 days has almost called me every single day, or every time I send her an email, she calls me to answer the question. To date, I have not answered one phone call from her. I don't want to talk on the phone. I want it all in writing, and I want to see it in email. So she realizes that she's not going to talk to me, even though that's her preferred method. And so finally she writes back an email, and I only exchange emails with her. And she hasn't realized that I don't want to talk on the phone to you. I don't. I want it on email. But not every buyer is like me. Some buyers say, you're not going to pick up the phone and call me, right? So you have to understand the way the modern buyer wants to buy, and you have to adjust your sales process.
Yeah, I really like that message, Mario, because it is very unique and individual to that buyer. And it is our job to understand what's going to work for them, what isn't going to work for them. And like you said, we've got all these tools. Which one do we want to apply that's going to connect with them? And I'm sure there's a lot that we could talk about with generational differences and all of that. One thing that I wanted to make sure that we left today's show with, I wanted to announce to the audience, and we're going to get more marketing around this, is I want to do a bit of a survey, or a kind of just a questionnaire to understand the gap that maybe the business supplies industry has and small businesses might have in using digital selling and digital sales tools compared
Yeah.
to the rest of the world, and just kind of see maybe how behind they might be. And what I discovered is you have a tool that you use anyhow. So we're going to team up on that, and I want to share that information.
Yeah.
And so why don't you tell us a little bit more about that, kind of that initiative that you have?
Absolutely. We issued a state of digital selling report for 2019 with LinkedIn, and it's been well received in the marketplace. But you came to to us and said, let's do it for the business supplies. It's very specific and very unique. And I think it's a brilliant idea and hyper targeted of what's working and what's not in the digital for digital sales in the business supply market is going to be fantastic. So everybody, if you go to Vengreso, that's V as in Victor, ENGRESO, Vengreso.com/Krista Moore. And I know you know who my girl Krista Moore is and how to spell her name, but just in case, /KRISTAMOORE, Vengreso.com/Krista Moore. You should first off register because you're going to get a chance to win a 1-year subscription to our Selling with LinkedIn on-demand training, and we will be pulling the name out of the hat and announcing that in the future. Filling your information, and then you'll get a link to actually the survey for the Digital Selling Benchmark Report survey for the business supplies community.
And I think it's important, we put it up there on the screen so that they have it as well, but it's important to note there's like 5 questions. I mean, this is not a complicated thing, but we wanted, was there 10 questions? 5 or 10?
I think it's 10 questions.
Not very many, but we wanted to, give you a kind of have a fun little contest in there that you can maybe.
It'll take us 60 seconds, 60 seconds.
That's a good way to put it.
Yeah, and then you'll get a chance to win.
We had a question, and it was a really good question. So I want to,
yes.
Sometimes we get them typed in and sometimes we don't. And let me see if we can bring that up again. If we can't, I can paraphrase it. The question was, does the modern buyer want in-person stop by sales calls where they don't have an appointment, but they're just stopping by? Does the modern buyer want that?
The answer to that, go ahead.
Wait, I'm going to actually read it exactly. Is the modern buyer of today comfortable with a person-to-person cold call with no previously appointment set up?
That is an excellent question, and it reminds me of my old days of knocking on doors at business parks. And the answer to that question is yes, maybe. Yes, maybe. Look, there's no right or wrong answer. I would say in many areas, like for example, in San Francisco proper, you're probably not going to be able to get into seeing the modern buyer. Like you're locked out from the lower lobby, right? So there are some areas that you might not be able to. But if you're in Tokenok, Oklahoma, then sure, you're walking into a plant. That might be the case where you can knock on the door and ask for John Smith, and John Smith comes out of the plant and talks to you. Mm-hmm. So there's no right or wrong answer. It's yes, maybe. And the yes, maybe is you have to know your audience. You have to know the buyer. You have to even know their age. Are they 55 and older where they prefer be able to shake that person's hand and have that person-to-person interest? Or are they a younger millennial who's in a decision-making authority position at the age of 27 years old that is like, dude, why didn't you text me, right? So you have to understand that particular buyer.
Yeah, that's a great point. And just to tag on to that, first thing I thought of was kind of no, because it's very traditional, especially in the business supplies world. But I like that you gave a yes, maybe answer, because that doesn't necessarily mean that it's, not there. I have, tell Mario that his company is the only marketing emails I look forward to receiving. Yay! They are visually interesting and the content is written from the buyer's perspective in a great way. I didn't make that up either, Mario.
That's a great testimonial. Whoever sent that, I appreciate that. Please send me that message personally, and I would love to get to know who you are. Yep. Thank you.
And I know who she is, so I'll connect the two of you for sure.
Sounds good.
Sounds great. Let's leave with that kind of tying something up here for a moment. it can be scary and a little fearful to start going down a different approach in terms of creating a new sales process that we're not totally comfortable with. But I'll go back to what you said at the beginning. It's twofold, right? It's understanding it and then getting the training, the proper training to be able to do it.
Yeah.
Full tool.
A
What was that
a
again?
fool with a tool is
Is a
still a
full.
fool.
Still a full. Okay. All right. Well, I can't thank you enough. It was a lot of fun for me. And we're going to show a slide that has your contact information so that others can get connected with you. We're going to be sending some follow-up messaging so that they can connect to that survey and get a chance to win some of your online learning. And also, we want them to listen to your podcast because you're entertaining and you're fun and you're Mario.
I am Mario. I'm just now, everything's going to be now Mario.
You're going to self-brand.
I love it. Krista, thank you for having me. It's been great, and you bring so much value to your community, and I'm happy and honored to be part of your show.
Great. Thank you. We'll see ya. Take care. And to our listeners at K Coaching, we care about you and we care about your success. And we'll catch you next week. Same time, same station. See you.